of real estate, sale of business assets, or sale of business stock. RJ is just filled with ideas, and we'll get into that further in a few minutes. A heads up, on Thursday, the 9th, we have a social event here at the club from 4 to 7. You can register online, and look forward to having you attend. It's, of course, we have an extended social event here because the networking time here is cut down a little bit from 7 to 7:35. Our next meeting is December 5th, always the first Tuesday of the month. We've got a great presentation on the intricacies of Section 1031, like-kind exchanges of real estate. We got Robert Valera, who's going to handle some of the nuances behind the technical rules, and we have really a national guru in Bill Exeter, who's going to cover the technical rules and more. So look forward to that presentation. January, we've got Jenny Bratt, who's now with Shepherd Mullen, and she's going to be addressing planning for the cliff, which is the big drop that happens on December 31, 2025 in the tax-free estate from 13 million back down to 6. And she's going to certainly include some exotic planning in that process. February, we've got Doug Wilson, who's going to be presenting with a person to be named. He's fresh from the Urban Land Institute fall meeting, and they're going to be presenting on the state of the real estate economy in San Diego, Southern California, and beyond. Our March meeting is our annual, what the estate planners could learn from the estate administrators and litigators, and a lot of challenges in that world. April is to be determined. Without really any further ado, I want to introduce you to Estella Mitrani. She's the Legacy Program Manager of the Jewish Community Foundation of San Diego. They're our sponsor for today. Here we go. This is the Jewish Community Foundation. JCF.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here this morning. Thank you to Bill for inviting us to sponsor today. As he mentioned, my name is Estella Mitrani. I'm the Legacy Program Manager at the Jewish Community Foundation. Chances are you probably know at least one of my colleagues, Jeremy Pearl, Charlene Wallach, and Ollie Ben. All three couldn't be here today. They are in Los Angeles at a conference, but who knows, maybe they're tuning in by Zoom. Next slide. At the Jewish Community Foundation, we believe that every individual can make a difference, and together we can change the world. Many of you know us well, but for those of you who don't, we've been over the past several decades, we've been the largest grant maker in San Diego, facilitating over $2 billion in grants since 1967. We currently manage over $750 million in assets on behalf of individuals, families, and organizations. We facilitate their philanthropy, match their special interests, and provide personalized granting services. We stay abreast of current issues locally and beyond, and we are proud of a reputation of trust we've built in the community. We are a community foundation operating with faith-based values. We work with Jewish and non-Jewish fund holders. As part of our concierge approach to philanthropy, we are relationship builders and provide opportunities to match donors' interests. For example, just last week, we had a special briefing with an ex-Mossad agent on the situation in the Middle East. When the war in Ukraine broke out, we had a call for our donors with grassroots organizations working on the ground, bringing in relief and evacuating civilians. Just next week, we have a 1-hour walking tour in Barrio Logan with an organization advancing environmental justice in San Diego and Tijuana's most polluted communities. Our donors have had an opportunity to visit Donovan State Prison this year with Guide Dogs of America to learn about their dog training program. So those are just some of the examples of curated experiences that we offer. But I'm here, next slide. Next slide. I'm here. I'm sorry, just one back. Yeah. I'm here to highlight how we work with you. So liquid assets. We have facilitated charitable contributions of interest in closely held enterprises, real estate partnerships, and direct gifts of real estate including single, multi, family, and land. I brought copies of an article, recent article written by Jeremy and Ollie, summarizing our work in this area and specifically focusing on the critical importance of timing when planning charitable contribution pre-transaction, and you should see those on your table. We support highly tailored investment management strategies for our largest fund holders by allowing our donors to recommend advisors of their choice. We support philanthropic legacy planning by working with advisors and clients to develop thoughtful plans by using a variety of different tools, such as gift agreements and letters of intent. And we work multi-generations with children and grandchildren to support their passions and develop the next generation of philanthropists. We also run crescendo illustrations. Next slide. Our signature program for professional advisors, and we have some graduates here, that we just completed is called the Trusted Charitable Advisor Program. And we just completed the last session of the workshops for the year, but we'll be gearing up for 2024. These sessions are intended for experienced as well as less seasoned professionals, whether in solo practice at a large organization, or advisors will receive tremendous value in the workshops and the networks you will become part of. Here's a sample of amazing local and national firms that are part of our TCA network, and we invite you to be on this list. And when you graduate, your name and firm are spotlighted on our website, marketing materials, and outward-facing advertising we do for you on your behalf throughout the year. For more information, feel free to talk to me about this after or visit our website, and we will certainly follow up with you. And finally, a big liquidity event can not only change the trajectory of your client's future, but also provides an opportunity to create an enduring legacy for future generations. Our goal is to partner with you and your client and start the process early enough so that philanthropic and financial goals are optimized to the maximum extent of the law. We provide complimentary and confidential charitable estate planning services. We love to brainstorm with you and would be honored to be part of your team. It's never too early to start a conversation either. An example comes to mind where we started this process maybe 5 years ago with a donor. She was retired, sitting on a highly appreciated rental property. And together we worked collaboratively with her advisors, wealth manager, attorney, real estate, and through a crutch, she was able to sell the property tax-free, invest the proceeds into a diversified portfolio of securities, and generate $30,000 in income for 10 years. After the 10 years, the trust passes to charity, where we worked with her to create a legacy plan and document her charitable intentions based on causes she's incredibly passionate about. And the beauty of it is that she can update her charitable intentions with us as many times as she likes throughout those 10 years, as she gets to know organizations, as she becomes involved in the community, as needs in the community change. So with that, I thank you for your time, and thank you to Bill. And I will stick around for any questions or if you'd like to connect. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Estella. Appreciate the information and the great support of the Jewish Community Foundation. As you all know, we, back in the COVID days, as things were being shut down, Charlene reached out to me and said, we do Zoom all the time. We're happy to help manage your Zoom for this time period of economic shutdown. So they've been a great supporter all this time. I'm thrilled to bring up Nikki Schubert of Free Wheels Mission. This is our nonprofit spotlight, kind of short and sweet, but she's going to introduce you to an amazing organization. I was introduced to Nikki by Chuck McLucas, if you know Chuck, who is equally as passionate about this, and it's a fantastic thing.
Thanks, Bill. So as you mentioned, I am a representative of the Free Wheelchair Mission. We're a local nonprofit based in Orange County, and I'm the San Diego team member. And we transform lives through the gift of mobility all around the world in developing countries. But I am going to let a video help speak for what we do. So I think it's the second slide. Yeah. Next one.
Little, I have been married for 19 years and have 2 children. I get my living fixing cars. 4 years ago, our lives were turned upside down. I went to the doctor because I needed surgery. But during the procedure, something went horribly wrong. Because of the surgery, I became paralyzed, and now I will never walk again. It was devastating for me and my family. How was I going to play with my children again? Right after this, my mother-in-law got sick with cancer. My wife was already taking care of me, and now also her mother. Without a wheelchair, we could not have made it through. But even with our struggles, I choose to be positive. The wheelchair from Free Wheelchair Mission has changed everything for us. The wheels are like my legs now. I can do anything like I normally would. I can go almost anywhere. I can travel by myself, make food, relieve the burdens from my wife, and provide for my family. One day, I carved out a coconut as a cup for coffee. My neighbor saw it and suggested I make more of them and sell them. Now I have a business selling those cups and all kinds of artwork from materials around me. I even make rooms for sweeping, and I can play with my children again. I refused to view myself as a burden. With my wheelchair, my daughter saw that her father did not give up. I may not be able to use my legs, but I can use my hands to make my family proud of me again. Thank you, and God bless you. Free Wheelchair Mission.
That was one of our recent recipient stories. As I mentioned, we work all around the world. We're a faith-based nonprofit. We're based here in California, but all of our work serves people in developing nations living with disabilities where a wheelchair is inaffordable or inaccessible completely. So for only $96, we manufacture and ship our chairs. That's our incremental cost per chair. Highly innovative. They're amazing pieces of technology. There's one in the other room. And they bring so much to each individual that receives this gift. You can advance the slide. So we always say that it's the power that we can bring for only $96. It's under $100 that you can add up your Starbucks to sacrifice a little bit just to give someone their new legs, basically. And it completely transforms the life because a wheelchair provides the opportunity for them to have an education to go back to get education, to gain employment for the first time, or to go back to being employed and serving their own family or serving their community. And sometimes it's as simple as just giving them back renewed dignity and being a part of the community. So on the next slide, there's a couple examples. I only have a couple minutes, so I don't want to go through too much. But there's so many strategic ways that people can get involved with us besides just giving themselves. Introductions to your clients, introductions to people dealing with their charitable estate planning, company giving, company-wide activities that can boost morale, but then also give back and see lives transformed just from all of your activity. And we like to work with schools and places of worship to bring about this transformation. And you can be the next person that introduces this opportunity to someone around the world who really, really deserves it. So on the last slide, and then on the printouts, there are my information and my director's information, who runs our institutional giving and legacy planning kind of portion of our team. And you can always stop by to our headquarters in Irvine and see our test track. One of a kind, how we build our wheelchairs and how we make sure that they're constantly meeting the needs around the world. We're always innovating our design. And then my colleague Georgia is here as well. So if you want to speak to us afterward, we've got some stuff up at the front, and I just am grateful to be here to share this mission with you all. Thank you.
Nikki, thank you so very much. It really is just a fantastic program and new to me and new to all you. So certainly look for an opportunity to support. Pete Tentler, do you want to talk about our trifectas?
Thank you, Bill. Good morning. Good morning. Do this every time. Are we still doing the trifectas? That's what people have been asking me as they come into the front door, and they're giving me a lot of positive feedbacks. They're always looking forward to doing this. And the idea here is, for those that are not familiar, I'm going to pair you up with two other people. You get together for breakfast, lunch, coffee, happy hour, and get to know each other more on a personal basis. And I did get one person tell me that the experience that they had was that the other two just kept talking and the other person didn't. So we're professionals. Let's make sure that it's all about one another and not just about ourselves. So I'm going to start this fishbowl here over at Diette's table and work it around this way, and I'll pick it up back here. If you have a preference of who you want to be paired up with, what type of profession, just write it on the back and put an arrow. Let me know to look for it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Pete. Pete, we really appreciate your being a master networker, and really has made this the trifecta opportunity a great way to get to know other people in a deeper relationship. So thank you so much. Certainly want to recognize David Jacobs, Libby Tate of Windward Life Care, and Brandon Robbins of Bernstein for help in greeting people and making everything go smoothly as we start the meetings. Definitely want to introduce the rest of the board. Phil Sullivan, who I know always zooms in with Sullivan, McGibbons, and Crickard, and Barry Levine at Northern Trust. We really appreciate all the great work that they do. And without any further ado, I want to introduce you to RJ Kelly. This will be brief since most of you know RJ, but he's with the Wealth Legacy Group and is a man of so many talents, and you'll see all those credentials listed on his card. But the three things that pop out is that clearly in this talk, he's very active with his clients that have maybe exotic assets, such as real estate or businesses and such. So he's very on top of some of the creative tax planning opportunities that are out there as they reach out to go for the home run. The other area, and you've heard him talk about this, he's passionate about philanthropy, and raising this and bringing this to his clients is just a key element of his life. I mean, I think his life goal is raising $1 billion for charity in his lifetime. And that passion shows through in any number of ways. And the third real area is he certainly gets the people side of planning. And as you know, from the presentations that I bring, for me, there's nothing more important. And RJ really makes that happen. So without any further ado, RJ Kelly.
Well, we're going to get some logistics set up here with the laptop, but in the meantime, and I'm sorry that I don't know your first name. Brandon. Brandon is here every month. He's here way ahead of any of us showing up to get this gear set up. So can we have a hand for Brandon? So I do. Kind of, we can, let's see.
Can you see it if it's down here?
Sure, that's great. I like to have, we're gonna have a a lot of slides coming at you, and we're gonna coordinate between the two of us here. Perfect. Actually, on the chairs. Oh, yep. See if my finger's still the same. All right. Perfect. Oh, okay. Sure. All right. Okay. So how do you like it so far? Yeah. I'm getting some feedback.
Yeah, I'll take care of it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Brandon. Well, while we're kind of getting ready to launch here, I do want to point out, just as Bill said, philanthropy is, as you will find out very quickly, something that we include in our conversations with our clients. And here's the thing. I was having a chat with a really esteemed attorney from our group, remain nameless, but I was just curious. Asked him how he introduced philanthropy into the conversation with clients. And you know what his response was? For those of you who get involved here, there's supposed to be some other goodies, but basically you get a tax chart. But his response caught me off guard. He said, I don't bring it up. I wait for them to bring it up. Okay. I have read in my career, which now is more than a couple of years, I have probably read close to 300 or 400 individual trusts myself. And I find people that are very philanthropic, and I could almost always tear the front page off that estate planning document, and we wouldn't know who that document is for. I find people that are wildly philanthropic during their lifetimes, and yet it's not embedded in their estate documents. Where's the disconnect there? So I know you're here to hear some advanced planning techniques, and so I'm hoping that you're going to walk away with at least a couple, and maybe you're going to say, you know what, I didn't quite understand that one, and can we meet and talk about it? I'll be here until, for at least 15 or 20 minutes afterwards. Bill said that I can go till 9:15. I think, you're going to need to leave before then. So I'm going to shoot to get done within an hour. But again, I'm local. Okay, can you hear me? Unfortunately, I've got a soft voice. Is this better? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's dive in here. So my goals for today, fourfold. Number one, I want to share some alternative solutions and ideas, concepts that maybe you haven't thought of, or maybe you're not even aware that they exist. How would that be about a value add? You can walk out with an idea that you haven't seen before. Would that be good? I mean, and by the way, I look at and I see a lot of friends and faces out there that I have worked with, been a huge admirer of. John, I get to be with, and Bill and Buddy and others. So thanks so much for being here for me today and to listen and share your ideas. That's how we grow, which is really the second thing. Wouldn't it be great if by the time we met December of next year, that we had reduced the amount of involuntary philanthropy our clients were paying by 100 million? And correspondingly, wouldn't it be great if we could create the voluntary philanthropy of a like amount? And we can do that. I talked with Bill about this as well, how we could track this as we work with our clients and just kind of have a little easy scorecard so that every month we get an update on how much involuntary philanthropy we wiped out and how much voluntary philanthropy we've created. Who's with me? Would somebody be willing to do that? Yeah, nice to see some hands up. So I also want to help our clients and us. Most of us are thinking a year, 3 years, 5 years ahead, and particularly because we do a lot of succession planning. That's a 3 to 5 year conversation before there's actual liquidity event. So how can we just encourage our clients to get their planning and thinking in advance? How many CPAs are there in the room here today? Yeah, they're exhausted. They're exhausted. That's why they're not here. It's because human nature being what it is, people put off, and this year we were able to do October 17th before we had to file. We didn't have to pay any kind of tax because of, we were in a damaged zone here. And what did people do? We had 9 months to get ready for this. They still waited till October 17th. So poor CPAs were just saying, this has been the worst year we've ever had because people continue to wait and procrastinate. So let's make sure that we're encouraging our clients to think a year to 3 years ahead. And then also last, here, this is North County Estate Planning Council. Let's work together even more. We're going to be meeting this Thursday, I believe, here from 4 to 7 for just a little soiree to be able to get to know each other better. But that's the three getting out for the trifecta. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to do that the last couple of years just because of my travel schedule, my speaking schedule. But I want to get back into that because that's a great way to learn more what our other advisors are doing and some of their innovative ideas. So anyway, that's the big picture. That's what I would love to see us walk away with from today. How do we increase the team efforts of us here in North County Estate Planning Council? And by the way, I do want to do a shout out to our board. How many of you know that this organization, North County Estate Planning Council, is listed as one of the top 5 estate planning councils in the country out of hundreds? And that's thanks to Bill. That's thanks to our board. You won't hear from him because he's too modest, but we have a fantastic organization of leadership here, and we should be grateful for that. You look at the caliber of speakers we have month in and month out. So let me do this. Before we get started, I want to give you 5 quick things about me. So that way, because I always like to learn a little bit more about the speaker before I go to an event. I want to know kind of where they're wired and where am I going to line up, where I might have some disconnect. And so I want to do the same for you. So if you have an enormous amount of things to get done, maybe this would be a great time to slip out, use the phone, return a few emails. I give you permission to do that. Bill, my buddy in the back, is going to, take your knees out or put dead fish in your hubcaps if you do that later, but okay, fine. So I just want to give you 5 quick things about RJ Kelly. Who am I? What's my world? First of all, I'm a follower of Jesus, faith-based. I don't do that perfectly, far from it, but it's done authentically. And I want to challenge wherever you come from, faith needs to be, I believe, integral part of our lives, both for our families as well as with those that we serve. And here's the thing, it said that the Greek and Roman artisans were so good at making pottery that they could, if there was a break, though, if there was a foible in that beautiful pot, they could cover it up with wax. So but for the really great artisans, they would proudly sell their wares sine cera, which means without wax, genuine. Is that, and so some have speculated that that's where we get the word sincere, sine cera. Old, whatever the dictionary is that everybody looks at it, nah, that didn't happen that way. But okay, I'm leaning into that one. I like that story, so I'm going with it. Sine cera, without wax. So could that be said of you? Could that be said of me? Am I genuine in terms of, is it real? Is it without wax? Second thing, my father died when I was 18, and I watched a business that was in the millions, in the multiple millions way back when, go bankrupt within 10 years after his death. I saw, as much as that was difficult to watch the loss of all of those assets, it was just as equally as difficult to watch people that had been, some of them had worked for Keller Oil Company all their life. You know, they've been with us for 30 years, 20 years. I mean, I thought Lucian was one of my crazy uncles just because he was West Virginian. He rolled his own cigarettes. I thought he was family though. And he lost his job along with dozens and dozens of others. So that was my first introduction to what happens with succession planning. And if you don't, maybe while the business is down here, having a team that's okay is fine, you can get away with it. But when the business rises to this level and your team is still down here, and when the visionary dies, that's trouble. And fortunately, my parents had done some very amazing asset protection planning in Little Yakima, Washington, where I'm from. And I mean, we got excited because we had a Nordstrom that even had an elevator. I mean, it was a small town. But when the visionary dies, the impetus dies oftentimes. So that's what really got me involved more in the succession planning side of things. Yes, facilitating $1 billion for philanthropy, that gets me going in the morning. When I first, it was used to be 500 million, and my business coach a number of years ago said, what would really get you scared? I said, that's easy. Going to $1 billion. Go to $1 billion. But that's truly what gets me out of bed in the morning. We crossed to by August 12, 2012, we crossed the 100 million mark. We're well on our way to our second 100 million. If the Lord tarries and I'm granted long life, we'll get to that billion and just keep going. And a lot of times that's just redirecting the involuntary philanthropy, also known as taxes. Thank you very much. Somebody else gets a tax chart out there. That myself 3, 4, 5 times a week. It has everything. It's just like a nice little cheat sheet. So how do we get there? We just redirect that involuntary philanthropy. But again, most of our clients don't know it because we're not asking them about it. Hence, that's why I've got that little sheet. So it is on your table. This is the ways that we, don't look at it now, but these are ways that we incorporate philanthropy into our fact finding, into our discovery document. And by the way, shout out for Free Wheelchair. I love that organization. They have done amazing things around the world. And when you think about the technology in those chairs for $99, I'm telling you, it is an amazing transformation of life. I organized a modest humanitarian project years ago for victims of landmines in Cambodia. And afterwards came back and met my wife, who's a survivor of the killing fields of Cambodia, here in San Diego, of all things. Here, that's the way it works. You think you're doing these things to make a difference in the lives of other people, and God's preparing your life to get the real blessing. So that's how that one worked. But they have an amazing impact around the world. So I encourage you to go find out a little bit more about them. And the last one is just my goal is to hit the last finish line at 147. I want to see a new century come in. So yeah, I'm an 8-time marathoner. I run, I work out 4 to 5 times a week. But again, we've got to be thinking about our own physical health. But the real key is there's 3 secrets to long life. You know what that is? Diet, exercise, and choosing your parents very carefully. I did it on all 3 counts. Okay, so let's dive into some case examples. Would that be okay? And I don't know about you, but I'm I'm here to work. So I'm taking the coat off. When I was in college, I would run into my class, just got there just before the bell rang, sat down, and I was the first one to speak. And so I was so nervous. I had sweat running down my nose, dropping on my paper. And it was like, oh man, I've got a very efficient cooling system. So anyway, just get yourself comfortable, hang out, and let's go. So first of all, I'd like to introduce you to a lovely, lovely woman in Georgia. We'll just call her for our example, the Miss Georgia Peach, and her son, Bubba. No offense for anybody in the South. I just thought that was a good fitting name. If you saw a picture of him, you would say, that looks like a Bubba, actually. So Georgia, and this is a case just a couple of months ago. An advisor, a friend of mine here in San Diego, brought me in and said, RJ, I've got a client I would really love your input on and advice. So she was 75, he's 58, has 300 trucks. Us men and our things, 300 trucks. I think she's going to outlive him, though. He's not overweight. He's just fluffy. Just fluffy. Worth 27 million. $2 million home and $5 million of stock, which I asked her about. She goes, I don't like it. So really? I got it from my dad. well, I think I'd learn to like it if it was 5 million. I don't care what it is, but no, she's a real estate person. So I was like, okay. So total 27 million. She'd already used up $1 million of her lifetime exemption. So that leaves, if we're going to see this in a second. And by the way, Brandon, thank you for following along so well. I'm supposed to go next, but no, we got this Vulcan mind meld thing going on right now. So, okay. So with a state tax exemption today of almost 13 million, we've using up already $1 million. That leaves with about 12 million that we could use. So God forbid, if she got hit by a Mack truck, there would be approximately $15 million of assets subject to estate tax. Now, Georgia does not have a tax, but we have our federal tax at 40%. So that would be over $6 million in estate taxes today, if God forbid something happened to Georgia. Okay, sorry. Yep. You know what?
There you go.
Better? All right, thanks. So over $6 million in estate tax. And that's due within 9 months after date of death. Now, yes, we can do a 61, 66 stretch out, but you don't want to do that. So especially not with interest rates being higher where they are right now. So how does Bubba pay for a $6 million estate tax bill if something happened to his mom, especially with a really intense real estate related type of estate, which frankly, most of our clients in San Diego, at least mine, and we've got clients in 22 states, but the vast preponderance of them have made their wealth in real estate. Great area. I see some Robert and some other friends out there in the real estate world, Miguel. So that's a great place to make wealth. Where's he going to find the liquidity? Terry called him Bob, the smart guy in the room, says, yeah, life insurance. So that's absolutely one of them. The stock is one other asset as well. It's $5 million of stock. But one of the issues with using stock for paying estate taxes is what's it going to be worth the day that somebody dies? What happens if we get into a situation where we have a down market and all of a sudden your 5 million is now worth 3 million, like in 2008 and some other times. So will it be worth 5 million when you need it? And again, in this case, even if we did use the 5 million of equities, we'd still have $1 million of estate tax to pay. And it only gets worse. Life expectancy. Now, again, for those that pick up this chart, what would you say a 75-year-old, what's the latest statistics on what age that 75-year-old, let's just say we had a cohort of 1,000 75-year-olds. At what age would half of them be dead and half of them still be alive? 82, Cheryl says. What was the other? 85? Anybody else? Okay. I'm getting a 95 from John over here. John wins the prize for being the closest. It's actually 99.6. And that's the age when half of the folks are dead, but half of the folks are still alive. So call it age 100, can we? You see, what you're thinking of is the same thing I thought of. And that is, we're told, oh, life expectancy when a baby is born is going to be, 82 or whatever the number is. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about ages when we get to be, have you ever heard the saying that the longer you live, the longer you live? It's true. It's true. So the longer you live, particularly once you get a client who's up in their 60s, their 70s, their 80s, chances are they're going to continue to live because the things that would have killed them when they were 30 and 40, they got past it. So don't think that your client is going to go to 82. And it's particularly for those of us that are dealing with advanced planning, plan on them getting to 100. In fact, reputedly, there's a sign in New York City, a billboard that says the first person to live to 150 has already been born. Think about that. I co-founded a nonprofit a number of years ago. I got to interview some amazing people. And one of the fellows I interviewed was Craig Ventnor. And Craig was that, if that name sounds familiar, he's the one that shows you, yep, I've heard of him. He and his business partner mapped the human genome. So super smart guy here in San Diego. And so we were talking about life expectancy, and he said, RJ, we were probably 1 or 2 generations away from making the decision where life becomes stasis. In other words, where we can choose how long we are going to live. by genetically engineering our bodies. Now, that's a crazy thought. I think God's got a few thoughts on that too. But anyway, the point is we need to be looking at our clients and preparing them to live for a very long time. And also wealthy individuals live longer because they can buy better care. So are you sitting down and helping your clients prepare to live to age 100 at a minimum? Okay, so here's the issue. For her, 27 million at a 3% growth rate. My real estate friends, are we safe in assuming a 3% growth rate on their real estate? Yeah, probably. 56 million at 3%. Estate tax exemption, it's estimated that by the time the estate tax exemption it sunsets, we're looking at probably $6 to $6.5 million federal estate tax exemption. Right now we're at almost 13. So taking a little bit over $6 million exemption and then fast forwarding that to age 100, that would be approximately a $12 million exemption. But remember, she's already used up $1 million. So we'd have almost $18 million of estate tax due. Where does that come from? Yeah, Terry says, life insurance is a great source. Yep, it sure is. But let's look at it in a combination of what we recommended for the client. So how do we help them? First of all, for the high growth real estate, one of the things we recommended, as did their attorney. So we were on this together, same team. And because I love working collegially. The fact is that nobody is as smart as all of us, right? Nobody's got a corner on all the good ideas. Yeah, I've got a couple of credentials after my name, but as much as I love to study and keep growing, keep learning, I need you. I need you to be at the table with me as we plan for that client. So the attorney and I recommended that we set up an LLC, drop the real estate in there. My two favorite states for planning are Nevada and South Dakota, what I call the Switzerland of the United States. But California is good too. So, but we only can have LLCs last forever. What's the life expectancy of an LLC? Infinite. But trust, a different story. So with trust scientists in Nevada, we can go 365 years, which isn't forever, but I'm told that's a long time. And in South Dakota and a few other states, we can literally a trust can last forever. So by putting in the real estate, by transferring $17 million real estate, using what I call compression strategies. In other words, we just get a valuation adjustment on those properties. IRS will pretty much lay down at a 30 to 35% valuation adjustment. So we can take $17 million real estate and crush it down in the LLC, and the valuation would be approximately 12 million. There's my friend, Gail, right? Gail's the valuation person. Go see her. So then the second thing I recommended, and this may be new to some of you. It certainly was to me until I just learned this technique about 7 years ago, when I was speaking with another friend of mine who's scary bright. So 1969, there was the Tax Reform Act. And it gave us a lot of different philanthropic tools. So Congress gave us a number of things, what we call split interest techniques, meaning that we can do something great for ourselves and our family, as long as we're willing to do something great for somebody else's family or school or church or hospital. So we can either have an income stream for our lives during our lifetime or for a fixed period of years, or we can, and then have whatever's left in the bucket when we kick the bucket, go to the charities. Or we can have it reversed, where the income stream goes to the charities for a period of time, and then the asset comes back to us, what we call a reversionary asset, or reversionary clad if we want to get into stuff. Or we can have it go on to the next generation. But point of the story is, this is a tool that comes out of that act, and I got a fresh coat of paint in 2017. Now, I see if you write this one down. You can go online and Google it. You're not going to find it by that name. That's my own name for it. But, and you don't want to know the actual name for it because it's a mess up. But anyway, just call it a PPT. And in addition, life insurance. So life insurance is a great way to replace an asset. In addition, we'll have our attorney friends draw up an asset replacement trust, an irrevocable trust. Again, I prefer domiciling it in Nevada or South Dakota, but we can do it in California, to replace the value of the asset that's being given away to charity. So let's see how that would work out. Let's compare the income stream. So first of all, again, this is just a chart. I'm going to blow through this pretty quick. This LLC would transfer the assets, the real estate income producing assets, into that LLC, because the LLCs last forever. great. We can literally have an income stream that will not stop as long as there's any kind of real estate that's producing income. And so so those assets and whatever that 17 million grows to, and we do have a chart in your materials that at the end of 100 years, it's just ridiculous how much value is in that trust. I mean, it's like $250 million at just a 3% growth assumption. And here's what it looks like. So Bubba and my buddy here are going to act as the co-managing members of that LLC. Bubba can be the investment advisor. And this is also what you can do with your own planning for like in our case. I'm remarried and I have two amazing stepsons. Our oldest stepson is unbelievable when it comes to math and real estate. That kid is super smart. So he's named as our investment trustee on our own individual trust. We do have it, God forbid, when something happens to myself and my wife, my half goes into a trust for the benefit of the two boys and their families. And Noelle gets to manage those assets. But that oftentimes when you have the management of an asset in or give a general power, what it does is it then brings those assets back into the estate under 2036 and 2042. So we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that the money can stay in the trust. Kids, grandkids, whatever, can manage those assets, but without having an includable in their state, either for creditor reasons or for estate tax purposes. So I see a few blank stares on that one. So we can talk about that at a later point, but it's a way to be able to keep the assets under management by the family. Now, here's the tool that I think can find some use for. I spoke on this last year at what's called the Top of the Table, and I was so delighted at this year's Top of the Table meeting to find out that somebody in the audience heard me talk about this. Went home, she's with Linsco Private Ledger, LPL here in San Diego, got an independent trust company to do the idea that I suggested, and it made a huge difference. So what I'm suggested here is that she put 8 million of the 27 million into the PPT. That can be real estate. PPTs can hold stocks, bonds, ETFs, mutual funds, cash. It's a great way to start with. But then what's the outcome from this? It gives a massive income tax deduction. Massive. Now that's going to change a little bit starting next year, but I'll show you the tax deductions on this one for our client. You can use those tax deductions up over 6 years. But you know, one of the biggest disconnects between advisors and our clients is that when they've surveyed advisors about what are the top motivations the advisors think for why their clients are philanthropic, you know what the usual answer is? Get the tax deduction. Right. I think you've already got a chart, don't you? But if not, give it to your favorite friend. Yeah. Most of us assume it's because they get a tax deduction. In fact, it is to facilitate that nonprofit. It's because they were asked. There's another one. That's an interesting one. Somebody asked them to give, so they gave. But also it's about the family involvement and recognition that comes. It's not about recognition. It's about the family involvement. We as advisors assume it's either because of the tax or because of the ego. And well, for some, yeah, that's a motivator. But for the vast majority of donors, that's not even on their radar screen. So no wonder there's a disconnect between us as advisors and what the motivations are of our clients for philanthropy. So here's the thing. How many people in the room have done a charitable remainder trust, CRT, or you've talked about it with your clients? Probably most hands in the room. Okay. How long can a CRT last? So you get a situation where you can have it. Basically, I've only been able to see it go 2 generations. And that's because I had an 80-year-old fellow, 80-year-old dad, and a 56 and 54-year-old daughters. Because it takes the life expectancy of the 2 beneficiaries. And we'll look at a chart here in a minute. I'm going to compare a CRT versus the PPT. But the best I've ever been able to do is 2 generations. With a PPT, we can go up to, I've seen a 4-generational PPT, which means income for the family for over 100 years. And then the philanthropic event. So that's one of the other huge differences we can. I'm not saying you should, I'm just saying you can. It retains the nature of the income. So if the income is coming out is ordinary income, oftentimes it's dividends, it's interest, it's net rental income from real estate that we own inside the trust. But it could also be any unrealized long-term gain. We can pay that out up to 50%. And I'll talk about that more in a minute, how we've done that. And this is what I call the fifth dividend. Normally the income coming out of this trust is quarterly. Great, fine. But sometimes folks need a little more income. How can you get more income out of a CRT? Can't do it very easily. So, but with the PPT, what we can do is, yes, it pays out 100% of dividends, interest, net receivables from income, as I just said a moment ago. But it also, if you have unrealized short-term or unrealized long-term gains, if the client needs more money, we can sell off some of those gains and pay that out as a fifth payment. So I had a client that really needed a whole bunch more money for a certain reason. So that's what we did. It has to be done by December 31st. You sell off the assets, boom, gets paid out, usually the end of January or early February. So it's a crazy tool. It's so flexible, and there's no tax on any unrealized income that's inside the trust. So here's the schematic on it. I won't belabor that too much. Oh yeah, I'm on the PPT joint life schematic. Yep. Question? Can you explain what you guys sell out gain? Okay, so the question is, what do I mean when I say sell off the gain or realize the gain? So let's just say that we've got, $10 million, $8 million in my example here, where due to success in some of the investments, it's gone from, let's just say, from 8 million to 8.8 million. So we've got 800,000 of gain, but it's unrealized. It's appreciation in stocks, it's appreciation in ETFs. Does that make sense so far? By the way, this means yes, this means no. Okay, yeah. Okay, good. So could be market value of the real estate, could be market values of stock, and whatever the investments are. If we see that, we can liquidate. Obviously, it's a lot easier to sell the exchange traded funds and other things than the real estate, but we could do that. It's also faster most of the time for us to sell that appreciated stocks, bonds, mutual funds. But you could, any asset that's in there that's got gains that's unrealized is not taxable until it's sold, in which case then that gain can then be paid out. We can pay out 100% of short-term realized gain. So assets that we've had for less than a year. And then for a year and 1 day, any long-term gain, that can also be, we can pay that one out up to 50%. And it retains its nature. So if it's long-term capital gain, federally, it's going to stay as long-term capital gain. Of course, here in California, we have no long-term capital gains rate, so it's ordinary income. But federally, it retains its long-term, the 20% maximum tax rate. Is that helpful? So the question has to do with how we're holding the asset inside the trust. And then if you were to have a fractional interest in a shopping center, apartment building, something, and you were to sell a portion of that fractional interest. Correct, but let's talk about that one afterwards if we can. One, I've got a bunch of cases to run by you here, and I don't want to get stuck on that, but that's a great question. So let's dig into it a little bit more afterwards. Okay. But what I wanted to point out here was that the income stream at year 25, assuming again just a 3% growth. This is assuming that, I'm sorry, it's a 1.5% growth. I'm assuming that we earn 6% total on the assets inside the trust, that we pay out 4.5%. So it leaves a 1.5% still in the trust. And in 25 years, though, the income from that would be over 670,000. Plus, we've got a huge amount that's going to go to charity. Now, what do you do about the home? Because again, in my example, we had done everything except the $2 million home, and that $2 million home is going to go up in value. So what do you do with that? Well, you could pay estate tax on it if you want to. I don't know why you would. But you can also designate that home as an ultimate beneficiary being a charity. So for example, a couple will meet in a minute. Ben and Eileen Dover, they had a home, that beautiful home over here in Rancho Santa Fe, that they wanted to go to a charity, Goodwill, Salvation Army, and an animal rescue organization. But they had it set up in their estate documents that they were going to pass that along when they died. What kind of income tax? So they'll get an estate tax deduction at death, but what kind of income tax deduction do they get by naming their home as a philanthropic gift when they die? Zero. So I asked them, are you sure you plan to give your home to the Goodwill, Salvation Army, and Animal Rescue Organization? They said, absolutely. Never change our mind. Okay. How would you like an additional tax deduction? They needed it, and I'll show you why. So if she transfers it during her lifetime using this example of what I'm just talking about now, a life estate agreement is what it's called. It is another way we can do it on a fractional basis, put it a little bit over time, and then use that to get some additional tax deductions. Okay, so real quick comparison of no planning to the planning. Is this helpful? Oh, yes, Joe.
Back up on the fractional life estate. I'm familiar with life estates, but not over time.
So, great question. That wouldn't apply to a life estate agreement on a fractional basis, because either it's kind of like being pregnant. Either you're pregnant or you're not pregnant. Yeah. So, but if you had another type of asset, real estate asset, you could fractionalize the gifts of that shopping center, apartment building, something, and do that over on a spaced basis. So, because sometimes this particular planning tool throws off a massive amount of income tax deduction. You're going to see in a minute where we had an 81% deduction for a couple, 81 cents. So much so that they can never use it all up. So one of the ways that we can extend that is by fractionalizing our gifting of assets that are going inside the trust. But you're right, as usual, Cheryl, that you can't do that with a life estate agreement. Okay. Well, I'm hoping the PPT is going to be up in there, but so let's compare no planning versus planning. 20 million in assets, assuming that God forbid Georgia passed away this year, we could get at best $20 million to the kids, estate tax $6 million, and nothing to charity. And her income off her $27 million estate, I was shocked to find out her adjusted gross income is $340,000. That's it. So with planning, however, 27 million is what's going to go down to the family. God forbid if something happened today, but also with better asset protection and creditor protection, with $10 million going to charity. Where's the 10 million coming from? Well, that's the PPT plus the gift of the home. And how are we replacing that? As Terry pointed out, with life insurance. And here's the income after the life insurance premium. It's $476,000 of income after paying $223,000 life insurance premium that George Alexander would have put in place there. So we know it's the best insurance that we can find. But it was a 40%, if they follow my recommendations, it will be a 40% increase in income. And at the same time, a huge increase for the family, and it will be a huge charitable gift. What about year 25? Same ideas. 38 million to the family, best case scenario. I mean, the bigger the estate is, the more real estate, the harder it is to get those assets sold and liquidated in a timely fashion. So almost $18 million in tax and $12 million of income over 25 years versus 44 million. It's a 66% increase in income. So right there, let's try that again. There we go. So that right there, $22 million of income versus 12. That represents a 65% increase in income. And look at that, 44 million of assets plus almost $20 million of philanthropy that they can self-direct. Who votes for option 2? Yeah, I sure would. Okay, so let's do a quick comparison. Since the number of you are familiar with CRTs and maybe no one is familiar with PPT. CRTs, again, it's a split interest trust. So it's part of the 69 Tax Act. It's tax exempt. The monies that are in there grow without tax. There is a mandatory requirement of 5% payout rate. Now, you can also have it where it's a net income, NIMCRUT, where you only get the income And if it's a less than 5%, okay, you take out whatever you get for income. But it is a 5% minimum, and it requires, here's one of the biggest differences. It requires a 10% value for the charity at the end of life expectancy. So if it doesn't, if you, when you run your projections, if there's not a 10% payout, it fails. And UBTI, so unrelated business taxable income. So if you've got real estate that has debt on it, you're not going to want to give it into a CRT, because $1 of UBIT, which comes from the having leverage on the asset, kills the CRT. That's it, done, over with. Got to pay back taxes, all kind of a bunch of other stuff. Bad deal. But with this next trust we're going to look at in a second, you can. It's not actually. It's what we refer to as a complex trust, and that gives us some certain advantages in terms of holding real estate, especially. But one of the big things is there's no required minimum payout. We could put it into a private placement of variable annuity and have zero payout. Okay, so there's not a requirement for that. Second thing is there's no remainder interest requirement. So it gives us much more flexibility. And that's why we can go 4 generations. I'm sure we could probably do 5, because there is, but the key is everybody has to be living. You gotta have at least one nose showing up from every generation. And the PPT, once you put assets into the trust, you can then borrow against them. So you real estate agents out there, advisors, we could put a PPT and put cash in there, buy real estate, and leverage it. Can't do that with a CRT. So real quick here, I'm going to blow through that one, and I'm actually going to blow through this summary report just for time-wise, because I want to get to some of the other goodies. Okay, so summary on Georgia Peach. Age 100, 0 estate tax, 44 million to the family, over $22 million of income over that period of time, and $19 million available for philanthropy. Home run. So that's the kind of stuff that we do. You know, we're there to work as a team. Here's another one, though. My sweet couple, Ben and Eileen Dover. This is an example of what I call an ambulance in the valley. You can only use this technique when it's, when there's been a liquidity event, and use this technique at the same time. So in other words, if your client has had a liquidity event and you're trying to reduce the taxes they're going to pay, you can use this tool, but unfortunately it's not going to fit, because it has to be the same tax year. So let me give quick case facts on this. At the time, I'm just picturing right now. So Ben was 79 at the time, and his wife, I'm calling her Eileen. I'm laughing because she was 83 at the time. She's 88 now. She grows marijuana with her grandson. They cultivate it there at their home. So when she calls sometimes, I can't tell if it's just her naturally ebullient personality or whether there's something else going on behind the scenes with grandson. But anyway, they sold their business and property for $7.5 million. They did not want to do a 1031 exchange, given their ages, given their frustrations with real estate. We're not doing that. Okay, so they created a $2.1 million tax bill. They didn't know that, but I had their CPA run the numbers. He says, "Oh, I got bad news. What's that? 2.1 million." Okay, but I did discover in the course of they were hiring us to manage their assets for them. So we're an independent registered investment advisory firm as well. But in the course of chatting with them, getting to know them better through our discovery process, I found out they were also very philanthropic. And that's where I found out that their home was going to go to Goodwill, Salvation Army, and Animal Rescue Organization. So here's what we recommended for them. And again, can only do this if it's the same tax year as the liquidity event. So I recommended we take $2 million of the cash, put it into that PPT. They got a $1.6 million income tax deduction for doing that, 81 cents on the dollar. You can't do that with a CRT. They chose to just do income for themselves. They'd already given assets to their boys. So, so this is a lifetime income stream to them only. One of the things that's really interesting that came out of this just 2 weeks ago in chatting with the family's attorney is that one of the sons, who's a ne'er-do-well, I'll get the word out yet, he told his mother, oh, but dad had promised me the house. Did he? And his same son is constantly on the street, makes a lot of bad decisions. He's in his 50s. And so because we had already done the planning ahead of time and put the home into a life estate agreement, let me go into this. I'm going to what we recommended. So with the home, we went ahead and went to the county, registered the home as a life estate agreement. So that gave them another income tax deduction. In this case, their $1.8 million home created a $1.3 million income tax deduction, given their ages. So between the home, the income tax deduction we created there, and the PPT, if you keep in score, that's almost $3 million. And not only that, but as it turned out, we eliminated the tax bill because of the amount of deductions we created. And we saved the situation that I just found out about a couple of weeks ago, where the son's trying to guilt mom into giving him the home. She says, honey, I love you, but can't do it. It's already in the life estate agreement. It's going to those 3 charities. And we're having real issues right now. We're this close to reporting elder abuse on financial because of the things that they're doing to manipulate, they're using a credit card and some other things. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on behind, but because the planning we did, we've eliminated that risk of elder abuse on some of the really big assets. And now we're on the job to make sure that there's nothing else going on. Okay, so now another case, our case number 3, Ken and Barbie doll. They have a heart to, as long as I've known them, which has been about 6 to 8 years, they've had a heart for helping victims of human trafficking. And that is really a light for our family as well. My wife was, for 15 years, was a social worker, and her expertise one of our expertises came in the world of human trafficking. And so she represented the victims. So the very first human trafficking case was heard in San Diego, guess when? It wasn't until the late 1990s. It's like 1997 was when the first case was actually tried here, and it didn't come into the courts until in the early 2000s. We didn't know what it was. Law enforcement didn't know what it was. They just thought it was prostitution. They didn't realize that human trafficking is a whole different issue. So these clients of mine, they had a real heart. They wanted to find a property, put a facility together that would help the victims when they're rescued, and then give them education, give them medical care, and really pour into their hearts to help them realize that God don't make no junk, that they have value beyond just simply being a sexual object. One of the issues that's really, this is a passion. The cartels are heavily involved in human trafficking. Did you know that? It's actually more profitable than drugs. How much money can you make off a single woman in a month? $40,000 cash, no tax, and without some of the legal issues that comes with drugs. The cartels are big in human trafficking. So understand, it's a horrible, horrible curse. So this couple, they wanted to build this facility. I asked them, well, what would it cost to build that kind of a facility? $3 million. Actually, we found out later, it was closer to 5, but okay, $3 million. And they weren't particularly wealthy. They were worth $6 million, which, okay, I mean, that's not small, but that wasn't enough they were going to give away half of their net worth. So what can we do? They have a passion to make a difference in the lives of those that have been trafficked, but what could they do to make a difference? So I had a real estate friend, super smart, found a beautiful place up in Escondido for $1.1 million. We told the seller why we were wanting to buy the property. They came down 100,000. And then I talked to my clients about, would they be willing to take a portion of their assets, put it into a PPT, so they would get the income, and would they be willing to underwrite the cost of the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance on that home? We found a lender that was willing to loan 80% loan to value. And he said, RJ, I'll do it, but I'm not going to throw a nonprofit out on the street. So I need to know for sure that there are enough assets there that can pay that principal, interest, taxes, and insurance for 10 years. So we did it. We approached them, and So we put 750,000 in trust with a 6% targeted income payout. And that's what they've been doing. So the beauty of this is that it went from having 100% of the funds before the nonprofit could take action to only needing 20% because we just needed the 20% down. And the lender loaned the other 80% that was covered then by my clients. So the nonprofit went out to their other donors, they raised the 200,000 and we were able to buy the property. But for 1/5 of what the normal cost would be to be able to take action. So this is a powerful idea for those of you that work in the philanthropic world or on their boards. That idea there is a powerful one. It's first time I'd ever used that. Well, we've used it a lot since then. Make sense? So next one. This one, again, may not have seen this one. I call it the 40-year tax deferred installment sale. It's code section 453 for the tax nerds out in the group. So here's the situation. They were selling a business and an office building. Round numbers, about $8 million of gain. California, we have both. If we're selling appreciated real estate or a business, you're looking at 20% long-term capital gain. Federal, you're looking at 13.3 in the state and 3.8% Medicare surtax. So all in, it's over 37%. 1031, of course, is a great tool to use on the real estate, but you can't use it with the business. So it won't work there. Business, again, roughly 7 million, the property roughly 5 million. So here's the way a normal sale would look like. And I'm kind of blowing through some of the numbers here. I'll just give you the bottom line. So on that almost $12 million of assets with $8 million gain, they would have had $8.7 million left in their pocket on the sale of the real estate in the business. Okay, so far? So in their case, what we recommended was a non-ag 453. Non-ag 453. What do I mean by that? There's a code section 453 that involves installment sales. There is a technique that I'll show you here in a minute specifically for farmers and ranchers. Unfortunately, there have been some people that have taken that strategy and they've used it in places that they shouldn't. And so it's been on IRS's dirty dozen list for the last 2 years. Doesn't mean you can't use it. It just means that IRS is going to look at it long and hard if it's not a ag situation. But this idea I'm going to show you works even if you're not agriculture. In fact, sorry, I'm taking some antihistamines since I've been traveling a whole lot speaking and got back to San Diego and all of a sudden my allergies have really kicked in. So I am dry as a piece of toast without the butter on it right now. So here's the way it works. And by the way, if I could, some of the things I'm going to show you now is really intellectual property. It's proprietary. So if you could please not share any of this material with somebody else, unless you talk to me first. Is that okay? Fair enough? I wanted to put it in your hands. I didn't want to not give it to you, but I'm just asking that as a professional courtesy. So here's the way it works. I'm going to blow through it pretty quick. Typical sale, seller, buyer. We've got the escrow agent. So the funds, yep. Next one, yep. Okay, so next slide, you do the next build, right? So we've got our escrow agent here, the typical things. So we're going to get the title. Next slide. The buyer puts cash in escrow. Okay, typical, great. But there's one other feature in there. It is structured as an agreement, as an installment sale. This is key. It has to be an installment sale. And then, next slide, we have an assignment company down here. And so there is, once it's a simultaneous transaction, when the cash goes in the escrow agent transfers the cash down to the assignment company along with the installment sale. Now the buyer's got what they want. They want the title and want the building, and they're gone. Okay. So they get everything they wanted. It just means we have to do a little bit more. Next slide, please. A couple more things we need to do. We go to an insurance company. Next slide. We build, sorry, we're not building, we're buying what's called a private placement variable annuity. What the heck is that? How many people know what an annuity is? Or at least have heard about it? Okay. That's wholesale. Sorry, that's retail. That's where you would buy it typically from an insurance company, good quality insurance company, and it gives an income stream for a period of years or for a lifetime. And it's a useful tool in the right situation. What we're doing here is we're buying a private placement from an insurance company up in South Dakota, super cheap. And it's $1 million minimum price tag. Got to have $1 million to put in. And what it does, though, is that we can then invest in anything we want. By using a private placement contract, we can buy real estate. We can buy stocks, bonds, mutual funds. Can't buy artwork and put it in your home. Sorry about that one. But anything else, you can pretty much buy it through that tool. And there's no tax on that money until you start taking it out. So literally, you could defer the recognition of income for 40 years if you want it. Or you take the income stream out as you need income along the way. Okay, so go to the one is, I'm going to kind of fly through this, the PPVA. So we can use either a private placement annuity, or we can use a private placement life insurance contract. Now, why would we do that with a life insurance contract? One, there might be a need for some death benefit, but two, when life insurance contracts are properly designed, when you take money out, even if the contract has gains, as long as it's properly designed, there's no tax on the income. You can withdraw. Let's say you put in 2 million, which is the minimum for this particular company. Put in the 2 million, grow it, and let's say the 2 million grows to 4 million. And you start taking money out via a non-taxable loan in the insurance contract. Question? So great question. Can you do a 1035 exchange? So in real estate, it's 1031. If we're exchanging for like kind real estate, in the insurance industry, it's referred to as 1035. And so with life insurance and annuities, you can typically exchange from, in this case, a retail product into a private placement product. The answer is yes. Okay. I want to get to another idea real quick. So go give me the PPLI facts down the side over here. So with a private placement life insurance contract, again, this is not retail at all. And in order to make sure that it qualifies under US tax law, we'll call them MEC rules and Section 7702, we can't put just a whole lump sum of money into that contract. We need to spread it out over time. So point of this story is there is a tool out there that you can actually defer the recognition of the taxable gain on real estate, on a building, on a business for 40 years. Now, I'm going to go, let's pass up, keep going through the, how do they compare, and keep going to the one that says tax treatment pick today or tomorrow. And if we, again, remember on this particular case, there was a $3 million taxable event. I mean, sorry, they had $3 million of taxes that they were going to pay. Now, the question is, do we pay that $3 million of tax now? Or what if we waited for 40 years? How many of you would pay the tax now? I wouldn't. I'd defer for as long as I can help it. So let's go to the next slide. And if we take the approach, let's compare paying taxes now versus paying taxes in 40 years. If we paid the taxes now, we'd get $8 million, roughly 8.7, that would grow to 14.5 million at the end of 40 years. If we defer the taxes, however, we would get the full 11.7 that we can invest, and that would be worth $22 million at the same growth rate assumptions in that same 40 years, which, comparing the two, you'd have to have tax rates, because the only thing about this technique is, can you tell me what the tax rates are going to be 40 years from now? I can't. Wouldn't pretend to. Will it be higher? Probably. So right now it's called in 37%, 37.1. But in this case, it would have to be over 77% for it to make more sense to pay the taxes now than to pay the taxes in 40 years. And as you're going along, if all of a sudden tax rates are going way out of sight, you have the option to terminate the annuity at any point. So you can start taking the money out. You don't have to wait for 40 years. So you have the ability to move the money around as you need it or want it. Okay, makes sense so far? So long and short of it, that's a lot of, that almost has to double in taxes for it to make more sense to pay the taxes now versus in the future. Quick question. So we're 9 o'clock right now. If you need to leave, head on out. There's a door over there, door over there. Hope you're finding some things in here that are useful. But how many of you, this is the best part, I think, because this is something that, how many know someone in the ag industry has a winery, has a oranges, avocados? Okay, you're going to want to hear this one. Okay, auto and rode a car. Here's the story. Going back to our hypothetical of a $5 million sale. And by the way, this works great for philanthropists too. So go ahead and do the hypothetical normal sale, and we'll go all the way to the bottom. And you're going to see this assumes a $5 million sale of a farm with 500,000 of basis. Keep going all the way to the bottom. And so in this case, using the 37.1% tax bracket, we would have 1.6, almost $1.7 million in taxes between federal, state, and Medicare surtax. We'd net 3.3 million. This is assuming, again, the sale of a farm. So move on. There's Code Section 453. It just deals with installment sales, but Congress added a special section specifically for those in the farming, ranching, agriculture space. So if you want to sell a farm, don't sell it through 1031. I can sell that farm and pay zero tax for 30 years, and yet I can get them 98% of the net sales proceeds in cash within 10 days. Did you follow that? No 1031, no identification, no nothing. Now I've got 98% of the net sales proceeds in their hands from selling their farm or their ranch, but they can use that cash and go buy whatever they want to buy. And they just have to pay the tax in 30 years. How cool is that? It has to be done correctly. Here's the other thing too, is IRS put another provision in here. And so yep, good. Where we can do this also with production. So you've got a farmer, rancher selling oranges, cattle, horses. It has to be an event that's happening all at once. We can sell that and pay no tax on the production. No tax for 30 years. And it costs 1.75% fixed interest rate for 30 years. John.
Is that, for example, the last year you helped this?
So the production can be every year. I was on a flight a couple of weeks ago to go to another event to speak for, and sitting next to a fellow, they sell pork, they sell eggs, and they sell turkey. If I told the name, I said, "Oh, I know that." I know. So just out of curiosity, what do you guys sell a year all in with those three different divisions? I mean, 100 million, 200 million? He said $1.2 billion. So we're in conversation now to show them how to defer the recognition of tax on $1.2 billion for 30 years. And you get 98% of the net sales proceeds right now. So, we're still working with the co-ops and wherever they sell their product. So they still do all those same things. It's just the buyer, we've just put another intermediary in for the assignment. So there's an assignment of the installment sale. We're going to blow through. Go ahead and get to so go to the one that just says installment sale coupled with a loan. It's a schematic that, so keep going. Yep, keep going. There you go. So basically it's just like the same one we looked at earlier, except now, okay, go ahead and build. Now the cash comes down to the assignment company. The assignment company goes over here. We buy US Treasuries. And then because of the US Treasuries that we own in the portfolio, we have lenders that are willing to loan 98% on the installment sale. 98%. Because we've got it all backed by US Treasuries. Keep going and let's advance it all the way. I'm going to just cut through, go to the one that says, why haven't I heard of this until now? Why haven't I heard of this until now? Keep going. Next slide. Thanks, Brandon. Keep going. Okay. So the biggest sale I've been able to find so far is a $4.8 billion sale. They deferred $2 billion in taxes using this technique. And Deloitte Touche, CPA firm. So go ahead and Brandon, go all the way down through that. Just pull up all the different names here. Boise Cascade is the next one. Boise Cascade is owned by Office Depot, Office Max. Go ahead, give me the next build. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my own screen. There we go. So, but this one right here, $1.5 billion sale. And you can see there's a whole bunch of household names there with a whole bunch of really prestigious CPA firms that have recommended this. So how come we haven't heard about it? That's why I'm here. I'm telling you about it. Yeah. So wrapping things up, let's go to the next slide then. So we've looked at compression strategies. How do we move high growth assets, get a 30 to 35% discount and move those off the radar screen for IRS forever, or at least 365 years. We looked at using the private placement, the PPT rather, the personal philanthropic trust to create massive income tax deductions, both pre and post sale for pre and post sale events. We've talked about nonprofits, how we can help the nonprofits with their mission with just 20% of the amount of money that they need. So we can make things happen with much more efficiency. We've looked at selling deferring tax for up to 40 years in the non-ag space. And then in the ag space, we looked at selling farms and ranch land and also production and get 98% of the net sales proceeds in our hands within 8 to 10 days at a fixed rate of 1.75% interest only, which gives us money in our hands that we can diversify, buy other assets. We can give more to philanthropy. We can also give and make a difference in our world. So with that, I do have a few more of the tax charts to give to you. There's also on your table, there's a list of questions that we use to incorporate and build philanthropy into our conversation. But on the other side is something we call quote action. And this is completely free. Nobody's going to follow up with you. You can just sign up for it. And what it does, it's a great idea or a quote. So one of my favorite ones is, you cannot live a perfect day without doing something for someone who can never repay you. Your action for today is to make a gift or do something, a kind gesture for someone anonymously without finding out that you did it for them. Okay, so if you'd like to sign up for it, it's completely free. Watch the response email though. It always goes back into the junk mail folder. So you got to find it there, click on it, and then you're in good shape. So with that, we also have a monthly newsletter that we make ourselves. So we profile these various cases, the kinds of things we looked at today. So if you want more, you can get it from our newsletter. Our latest marketing project is a book on exit planning. So I've got a copy with me here. It was included in a book with some very smart guys. I don't know why they put me in. I think I'm just the guy, the water boy. But anyway, that's a project. If you're looking at getting more publicity for your firm or looking about getting a book written, let me know. I've got some resources and some people I can introduce you to. Again, that's it. And so thanks for your kind attention and for hanging in with me this morning. It's my honor to be here.
RJ, thanks so very much. A lot of food for thought in there and ideas to add to our practice. A key point behind all of that, of course, is the teamwork. So if you don't know something, then we have plenty of experts here in the room, and working together as a team is going to bring more ideas than you might have had before. Our December 5th meeting is a deep dive into 1031s with Robert Valera and the national expert Bill Exeter. So thanks so much and welcome, and we'll see you next month. November 9th, Thursday, we have our social event right here. So hopefully you can make it. Thanks.